It's Tina Brinkley Potts, and I am so excited to bring my next guest to this series. If you've been watching this series, you know that I've been focusing this season on women and technology. It has just been so near and dear to my heart for so long, as well as, loving to highlight some wonderful women. And today will be no different. So today I have with me Jillian. Okay, now she's one of my favorite people. Listen to me, I can't even talk right because it's just so good. Jillian is one of my favorite people that I've met through Keep. And let me tell you why. Jillian really means when she says that she wants to be a fully involved parent as well as have her business. Now, I can tell you, especially in my life, because the people come first. I have an order. I've always said I had an order. It's source, people, then my business, right? Like that's important to me. And Jillian is one of the rare people who I feel is truly living that. Jillian, thank you for coming on today.
Tina, thank you so much for having me. I really hope I can live up to the hype of your introduction. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Well, I think you are the perfect person to talk about being a mom, being in business, how we use technology to literally be able to be fully present for our families, because again, that's just so near and dear, not to me. I know it is to you because you centered your whole business around it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I own a marketing agency, and I could not do what I do without automation, without technology, without systems and processes in my business. And in my opinion, those things are segmented, right? Like you have the automation, you have like several different pieces. My team as well is a big piece of that. But to me, it's just kind of all one big breathing, live, living entity that I still have to manage. I still have to figure out some kinks and, keep it well oiled, so to speak. But it truly is something that I worked really hard when I was pregnant in 2019, knowing that I always say I had 2 due dates. So I had a due date for this baby coming out of me, and I had a due date for my business that I really had to get my stuff together. Because the reality of my business was I started out as a virtual assistant, kind of taking odd jobs here or there. A client eventually used this amazing automation tool, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna specialize in that. And I did, and I learned it, and I became an expert, but it was still just me. And then I started hiring a team, but it was still just me interfacing with clients and delegating stuff out. And I was so comfortable in that role. I was so comfortable with telling everybody how busy I was that I couldn't even see that there was this other, better, more beautiful, more streamlined way of doing business that got me, the bottleneck, completely out of the picture. And I recognized in pregnancy that if I want to still have my business, I didn't know a pandemic was on the horizon. If I still want to have my business post baby, I need to make sure that this thing can run and operate without me being there. And so I spent my whole pregnancy preparing the business, preparing my project manager, getting systems in place, getting automation in place so that we could still make sales, we could still sell apps, we could do all of those things, but without it being tethered to my time, because I wanted to be a present mama. I had no idea what I was getting into because this was our first baby, and I thought like, oh yeah, I'll take like a 2 or 3 month maternity leave and blah, blah, blah. And like, just bounce back and whatever. I had a C-section. I ended up needing so much more time to like recover, get used to my new life, get used to this duality of like being a business owner and a mom at the same time. And I ended up, in part because of the pandemic, but also in part because of the amazing systems that I built, I ended up taking a 15-month paid maternity leave, which is like unheard of in corporate. And it genuinely is because of the systems and the automation that I built leading up to that point.
Oh my gosh. So Jillian, you just said a mouthful, and there's so many pieces, right? But I just want to, first and foremost, every time something is not going right in my business, it is because I am the bottleneck. Point blank, period.
Yeah.
So what Jillian is saying, again, is so near and dear to my heart because I know it every single time. And even when I think I'm over that hurdle and I got it, right? Literally, Jillian is like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's rearing its ugly head over in this part now, right? So Jillian, talk a little bit about, yes, I want to get to the automation side in a little bit, but talk about the mindset of getting out of your own way and not being the bottleneck, because it's kind of hard. It's like a push and pull against yourself, right?
It is. It's the mindset, in my opinion, is the ability to not only imagine yourself as a completely different person, but to actually put the pieces in place to become that. And the reality for me, and I think the reality for a lot of business owners, whether you're a parent or not, the reality for a lot of business owners is that we get comfortable. You know what I mean? We dig our heels into the sand of whatever our role is, or whatever we feel fulfills us or brings us value or feeds our ego, right? Because we all do it. And we get comfortable in those positions. I had so many voices in my head saying like, oh, my project manager can't possibly manage clients the way that I do, or my clients love talking with me and I provide all this value, blah, blah, blah. And what are we going to do I'm going to lose that client if I'm not there. And the reality is they don't care. They don't need me. As long as their stuff gets done and they're happy and things are like, that's what they care about.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily care about me, and my ego was tied up in all that stuff. And so I was just super comfortable in that place with the voices in my head telling me that I had to stay here. And the reality for me was like, baby's coming. It's time to like put up or shut up, basically. And I had no choice. What was I supposed to do? Like be in labor with my computer on my lap, messaging clients on Slack? Like that's ridiculous. So I had really an incredible gift that this baby genuinely like saved my business, because if not for those 2 due dates, I would have stayed just like every other business owner, super comfortable with the voices in my head telling me where I belonged and where I needed to stay.
Jillian, this reminds me of one of those times when I was still a bottleneck in my business. A lot of people didn't know that I was hospitalized. During my walks, I felt something weird. And I went to the hospital and they were like, you have a blood clot, and immediately put me in the hospital, right? And because I had been juicing and everything for so long, it took like 7 days before I ended up to the medical level that they needed me to be at before they could release me, because of the way the juice and the chlorophyll and the juice and stuff was working in my body, right? And I was in the hospital, Jillian, and I had clients coming to the hospital. Like, it was just, I mean, when I look back on it now, it was ridiculous, right? But it wasn't until a nurse literally came in the room and she said, "I don't think you realize how sick you really are." And she was like, "Maybe you should use this time to reevaluate." Like, I mean, I was running work from this hospital bed, and like, it just, everything you just said reminded me of that, because everything was just way too much about me at that point. Way too much about me. And I love that you said you had 2 due dates. So you knew that when it was time to go have this baby, it couldn't be all about you anymore. So that kind of forced you to kind of change. What else, Jillian, typically can someone see themselves in what we're talking about? They might not have that due date that's pushing up against them, right? Like, what's like a symptom of your business is too much about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when it's definitely, for me, it was a lot of those voices in my head of like, oh, the clients have to talk to me. Like, I've been with them for so long. Like, I don't know that I could trust somebody else with my clients and all of that. So I think the voices in your head that feed your ego, that is a humongous one. Yes. I think, yeah, when we're entrepreneurs, our businesses are our first or maybe second or third children. And it's hard to give that up. It's hard to hand over the reins of that thing. Yeah, those would be the big ones for me, I think.
Yeah, I think those are some pretty huge ones. Yes. So Jillian, what's typical after you start working with someone and you're like, "Hey, listen, it's time to put some systems and processes and everything in so that you can have that time with your family, not feel guilty, not feel like one is being ignored over the other." When you first start working with people, what's the typical response?
Ooh, like for them?
Yes, for them.
Oh, gotcha. So we work on our agency side, we work with a lot of like coaches, authors, speakers, influencers. We build membership sites and we have like retainer models. But I have a coaching side where I work primarily with mama entrepreneurs. And it's a lot, honestly, it's a lot of the same thing. And it's not even so much that the ego is caught up in their business, but a lot of times it's this like female guilt trip. Right? They're like, oh gosh, I have to do it, or I have to be busy, or I hear a lot of like, I need to do this, or I should have done that, or I should have. No, not really. Like everybody would love to have $1 million business, I'm sure, but should you do that? Well, maybe or maybe not. There's a lot of responsibility and a lot of hard work that comes with having something like that. If you can live really, really comfortably on, 50 grand, 70 grand, 100 grand a year, like there's no shame in saying, I don't want $1 million business. But all of this female, like I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda, just junk that clogs our head is just really awful. So I feel like getting down to the actual shoulds, like you should have a way to, process credit cards and take payments without you physically having to do that. That's a should. You should have some kind of a newsletter and some kind of a follow-up, right? That's a really nice should. But this, like, I should go and do that flashy thing, or I should buy this new piece of software, or I should do this strategy, that evaluate that, like for real, and see if that actually fits into your business, because it's a great idea, but it might not fit.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you're talking about that shame and guilt that like in all of the different places that it's running your life and your business, right? Like the fact that because you're watching everybody else do live streams or something and you really don't have time, it doesn't even really fit into your life, but you're feeling guilty because you're not doing live streams too. Yeah, I get that. I get that a lot. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So Jillian, when you're working with, let's talk about the mompreneurs a little bit. Okay. And so when you're working with them, typically what does their tech stack, does it really seem to be working in their life? Have they, bought something because somebody else told them that they should get it, but it's really just sitting there? Like, what's your experience with that?
I think for a lot of people, and there's a little bit more of this, in my opinion, with female entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in general will buy the shiny thing or buy the offer, or, oh, I can get a great deal on this, but it might not necessarily fit into your tax stack or fit into your business. So that's a big one that I see. Another one is my friend told me to get this and I've been paying for it for a year or two and I don't really know what to do with it. Or a lot of it is like, well, I tried that. Like, oh, I don't really know that I want to do automation. I've tried that before. Did you now? Tell me more about that. And then it's like MailChimp or Constant Contact or 17 Hats, which in and of themselves, no judgment, are half decent systems or can be good systems for the right person or for the right business owner. But the reality is they don't do what a lot of other systems do, even for the price. And so what I find is a lot of pushback of like, oh, I tried automation. I tried that stuff before. Well, okay, tell me about that experience. And then once you start to pull that story out of them, the reality is they bought it, they got busy, they forgot about it, and they didn't actually do anything. So tried it, they didn't actually try. And I think it's hard for business owners. Number one, it's hard for business owners in general to like really genuinely carve out time to become an expert in something, which is also kind of crazy. It's why I run an agency doing it. But it's a lot to ask a business owner to kind of go all in on something that they haven't necessarily proven or seen, or even they've seen other people get results from this thing, but they're not so sure, right? They're a little leery about it. And I find that so often.
Oh, yeah, I think that's so good, especially the part where most people, I say they use it like a bike on Christmas technology, right?
Yeah.
You got that bike for your kid, you come back, you're putting it together, you've never read those directions, you just start putting that bike together, and guess what? Here's a whole handful of nuts, bolts, and all of this stuff that never get on the bike, right? The bike is working, so you're okay. Now that bike works for that kid Christmas, the week after, but guess what? Starting somewhere in the middle of January, maybe that front wheel starts to wobble a little bit or whatever. So you got a little bit out of it, and then it's like the bike was bad. And technically it isn't, it's because it wasn't put together well. Mm-hmm. And I find that a lot. So I love the way you said it, because that really rings true, pretty much all the way across the board. And I also love where you talked about the different versions. So for instance, if you've tried a MailChimp, that you're considering that automation, when it isn't the same thing of what we're talking about at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, exactly. I love that analogy, Tina, the bike on Christmas. And it's so true. I think as entrepreneurs, we get desperate so often to just get ahead a tiny bit. And okay, if I throw money at this thing, it's going to do this for me. And sometimes that's the case, but it's not always the case. We have to air up the tires. We have to put the nuts and bolts on the right way. We have to do all of we have to put the seat on correct. We have to put the handlebars on right, and it's all of these other pieces that just kind of add up to, not a lot of work. I don't want to say it that way, but it is a commitment, and it's dedication and trusting yourself enough that if you put forth even a little bit of effort, that is going to be returned to you. I really love that analogy. That's brilliant.
Awesome. And you're right. Like, have you found, I want to kind of stay in the lane we're in, but I just want to switch it a little bit because, we all talk a lot about the client or customer journey, right? And so on the front end of that journey is where social media typically lies, right? And then on the middle to the back end of that journey, that's typically where the money lies. Do you find, Jillian, when you're working with most of your clients, when someone first starts working with you, that they've spent a lot more time on the front-facing stuff in social media and all of that stuff that, like, I call it vanity metrics, more than the actual nuts and bolts of what's really going to create those processes and streamline those customers?
Ooh. That's such a good question. I can see it both ways, and I've heard it both ways. And actually, a lot of the clients that I deal with, whether it's mama entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, coaches, and influencers, a lot of them spend time making that money, not recognizing that they also need to like bring in leads. And then they kind of, it's kind of this teeter-totter game that they start to play, right? I'm over here, I'm making money. Oh, that money has started to slow down. Okay, now I need to adjust and go over here to social or to marketing. And I've started that, and I've started paying for ads, but I have a leaky faucet, right? I don't have a good capture system, or I don't have a good way to nurture leads or to bring them in or collect that information. So now down the drain goes all of my money for Facebook ads, and it's not filling this end of the pipeline, right? So I find a lot of the clients that we work with and a lot of clients that come to me really have a pretty decent foundation as far as making money in their business, but to scale that and to grow it, or to take it from being a brick and mortar to being more online or more socially present, that's where the automation piece truly comes in and does wonders for so many businesses. Because you, the business owner, even with a massive team that you don't want to have to pay for anyway, you can't follow up with every single person. You can't keep tabs on every lead. Even if you only have 3 or 4 leads, it's to do, to keep track of 4 leads, which is not a lot, and work on your business and manage clients and, create new systems. And it's too much. It's overwhelming. And then that's where that like entrepreneur desperation of, okay, if I throw money at this software, I'll be able to get ahead a little bit. And it just becomes this teeter-totter dance that they play. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So do you feel as though when it comes down to some of your clients that it's like, okay, they go out and they make the money, like you were saying, and then they're fulfilling it. So it's like they're never in all of the stages at once. It's like they can be over here marketing, but they can't be fulfilling at the same time. And so it's like a hamster wheel, right? Like you speed it up and then you ride off of the momentum, but then all of a sudden it goes back to zero again. And then you got to start that whole process all over again. Do you feel that happens a lot?
Oh my gosh, so often, even today in my own business, I see glimpses of that. And that's like the light bulb moment of, oh, I need to create a system for that, or I need to automate that, or I need to hire somebody for that. And all of those options are great options. It's just a matter of figuring out, like, can I automate it? Is it complex? Is it easy? Do I have to hire? Does it need that human touch? Can it be partially automated and maybe somebody existing on my team can manage, a piece of it? Yeah, absolutely. We see that all the time.
Wow. Jillian, I want to switch gears just a little bit. As you know, this whole season of this podcast is women in tech. Tell me some things that you feel are different in your approach as a woman than some of your male counterparts.
Ooh, that's such a good question. I want to answer it, but I will also say that I'm seeing now, and maybe I'm on the older side of the millennial generation. So like, I'm not quite a Gen Z and not quite a millennial. But I really am seeing changes in gender roles, in my opinion. I'm seeing a lot of my male colleagues present themselves in a strong way, but still in a caring way. I'm seeing a lot of my female colleagues being stronger and being, just not as reserved, so to speak. And all of those are, gender stereotypes. But it's so hard to answer that question without going to gender stereotypes.
Really great answer. Yeah. No, I love the answer you gave, because that makes a lot of sense. You are finding a lot of the gender-based stereotypes are kind of loosening now, right? Like, especially for, as you said, the millennials. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I actually had a colleague of ours. We're working with him because we're working with him kind of on like a white label basis to help him with a couple of clients, and his project manager is sort of falling through the cracks, and he really loved working with us. And he came to me and said, hey, please don't take offense to this question. I hope it's okay that I'm asking. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I really want to know what this question is. But he asked, he's like, hey, I really liked working with your project manager. What's her situation? What's your arrangement with her? Would it be okay with you if I reached out to her and possibly offered her a job? And I was just so blown away by his thoughtfulness and the courtesy and respect that he paid me to reach out to me, rather than like going behind my back and asking my project manager. And ultimately the answer was no, he can't poach my project manager. I love her and she's mine. But the thoughtfulness and the respect that he paid me, and I was so blown away, and I really felt validated as a person and as a business owner, like not just like an entrepreneur, oh, I've got this coaching thing, but genuinely like, I've got a business. I felt so validated by that gesture. It just really blew me away. And I think seeing moments like that is where I'm really recognizing those gender stereotypes starting to change.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good story for a lot of reasons. I mean, number one, just the authenticity there, the integrity there. Like, you don't really see that as much. Like, yeah, that was really good. Even though the answer was no, at least, I love that he did that. That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So, Jillian, tell me what I typically say, when it comes down to automation and a female approach versus a male approach. I'm typically talking about the way the nurturing is happening in sequences, right? I feel a lot of, I feel like a lot of back in the day, and you know, this medium has been around for maybe 15 years. So like when I say back in the day, we're only talking about a 15-year span of time. But in the beginning of all of this, it was like throw as many emails at people, as many things as you possibly can. And that was typically, it was definitely male dominated at that point. Will you talk a little bit about how when a mompreneur or coach, speaker, or influencer starts working with you, how you help them move into a more nurturing communication throughout, not just on the front facing, but on the back side too, that really helps develop that better, deeper relationship with that customer?
So when it comes to developing relationships, and I'm going to sound like a broken record because Tina, I know that you have said this and preached this for how long, but it really is about providing value. And I think I say that with the asterisks of being a broken record, because the reality is that not a lot of people know how to truly implement that and do it genuinely. I think a lot of people academically can create a slide or a spreadsheet that says, you know, provide value. Okay, cool. What does that actually mean? What are you actually giving them and doing for them? Is it an actionable thing? Is, you know, providing value can be multiple things. Providing value can be an inspirational quote or a phrase that makes somebody feel better, but that value is momentary and fleeting because it only makes them feel good in the moment when they read it. Whereas something that can be valuable, that could be tangible, would be like some kind of quick action that they can take in their business that brings them more ideas, more clients, more money, whatever that looks like. So I think being able to provide value and not just like academically say, oh, you have to provide value, but to know what that means and know what kind of value is most valuable to your audience really is just such a secret sauce. And the reality, in my experience of being in this industry for like 10 years, no one can tell you what that is except for you. And the only way for you to figure it out is to put something out there and nobody wants it. And you put something else out there and, oh, you get a couple of likes. And then you put something else out there and everybody buys. And, you know, and it really is this trial and error. It really comes down to like, there is no secret sauce. The secret sauce is tenacity and staying with it, and your ability to fail and pick yourself back up again and try this and it fails and okay, let's pivot, and try that and it maybe works a little bit and okay, let's pivot, right? That to me is what genuinely brings value, and how you figure out what that value looks like for your audience.
I love that. I love that answer. One of my biggest pet peeves was the overuse of the words authenticity, being genuine, you know, all of those words became marketing buzzwords. And I was like, yeah, the word is good, but how do you actually live it? And I think you just did the same thing with the word value. You just showed, listen, you can say the word, but how do you show it? How are you demonstrating it? And so, yeah, that brilliant answer. Jillian, tell me this. I know the word magic probably has come up in almost every single episode of the season, because when when you first start working with someone and then they've experienced like that first 30 days where something now is like, whoa, right? And we don't, and it doesn't always have to be money, even though a lot of times it is. But there's something that now just is like, whoa, because you've added systems and automation. Can you tell a story like that with one of your clients?
Yeah. So I think the strategy, if I remember correctly, actually comes from like Ryan Deiss of Digital Marketer. And in one of his really popular campaigns that he shares with people or sells to people, I don't remember exactly which it is, but he has this he has a word for it, and I don't remember exactly what the strategy name is, but it's basically like a how's it going email. That's it. It's just super simple. It's an email that gets sent out to your entire list or whoever's in your funnel at that moment when it's appropriate to send this kind of an email. But it's just an email that's, the subject line can be as simple as like, how's it going? How are you? Yep. What can I help you with? And then the body of the email really is as simple as, I'm here. What do you need? What's going on in your business? How can I help you? Because what's so beautiful about that from a strategic standpoint is everybody's so caught up in like messaging. I have to speak the language of my customer, and I have to know exactly what they say and give them exactly what they want, exactly when they want it, and blah, 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 blah. Honestly, you just have to start the conversation. Because when you write, like Tina, if I asked you right now, how's it going? Your mind could go a million places. Your mind could go to your kids, your God bless you, your grandbaby. Your mind could go to your business. Your mind could go to, a friend that you just spoke with a little while. Your mind could go anywhere. And the beauty of that's the strategy of asking some kind of like an open-ended question like that is whatever you are feeling in that moment is what you're going to give back. Yes. to me. And so it really just opens up the conversation of saying like, what's important to you? What do you need? I'm here for you. And the amazing response, the magic is people reply to that email, because when you really are genuine and you have that authenticity and you actually give a gosh darn, for lack of better words, about people and about their business and about, their financial security and their families, they'll be responsive to you. And whatever it is that's stirring in their mind, whatever it is that's weighing on their heart, they're going to think of that thing in that moment when they read that email. And it's just such a beautiful, elegant, simple, I don't remember what he calls that strategy. I'll have to look it up now, but it's that was magical. Just sending out that email for so many clients and just watching the responses come in can bring ideas of new products to launch. It can bring you ideas of what kind of messaging you want to speak to. It can start conversations of what are you offering, and hey, I need help with this, and do you have that? And that's my like big secret strategy, is like a 2-line email.
Oh yes, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have a mother and daughter team who are my clients, and she sent me a lot of emails, and I don't know how long they've had Keep Max Classic, but now I'm managing it for them. And one of the things that I said, okay, we're getting ready to amp up this open rate. And I said, and so here, I'm going to send you all of these short emails here, edit them to your voice. I said, but don't make them longer than what they are, right? And so, yeah, I love that you use that strategy, because that's one of my favorite things, because it really is about getting the conversation started and building the relationship, because you can have a lot of people on your list and not have any relationship with them, because if they're not opening, You're not building a relationship. So I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Absolutely. And there's like multi-channel too, right? Like when you're on social and you're emailing and you're doing text message, and this is a strategy that isn't for everybody. But when you have that multi-channel communication, people are going to come to you in the channel that they want to start communicating with you on. And that's where just being sort of omnipresent, so to speak, is so impactful to have a strategy like that.
Yeah, and I love that you said that. A lot of times people are like, well, I don't know which channel to be on. And I'm always like, all of them. And they were like, well, no, someone told me I should take one and master it. And I was like, and I hear you. and and I really do say that you're going to spend more time on probably one, but you want a presence on all of them. And it just works. I remember, like you were talking about Ryan Dice, it was Mike Koenig's. I was in his community for a long time, and his version was you everywhere now. You everywhere now. And that all it does is, because of our attention span, like if I'm here from here, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, she's everywhere. That becomes the concept. So I love that you said that. So Jillian, before we wrap up, because I really enjoyed this and I could probably ask you questions all night, but I want to ask you a couple of things. So first, tell me something that felt like a failure when it happened, but now it was setting you up for something better.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite questions. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I went to college for music. I was going to be an opera singer, and I'll have to sing for you one day, Tina. But I really loved music, but I left college kind of feeling like music was more of a job than a pleasure. And when I moved to Florida, I was working at Walt Disney World. I auditioned for everything, literally everything under the sun, even if it was, I don't know, I can't do a backflip to save my life, but I was going to be at that audition trying to show my face somewhere, right? So I auditioned for everything, and it became this game at the time of like, I was making $8 an hour. I would have to take off work, not get paid to go to this audition. Most of them went relatively well. So I would get a call back, which means like, hey, we like you, we want to see you again. Mm-hmm. I would then have to take off work to then go to this callback to either get another callback or maybe get told no. And it was about 3 years of just constant, like taking off work, not making money, going to these auditions, getting my hopes up, being told no, until finally I was like, all right, Jesus, like, message received. I get it. This is not where I'm meant to be. I even tried for like managerial positions at Walt Disney World and was told like, oh, we love you. You have really great energy. You're wonderful, but you're a bit overqualified. Like, we're looking for someone more this. And I was like, really? But I don't want to be overqualified.
Oh no.
It was so bad. And so I finally just had to have this moment of recognizing that this dream I had ever since I was young to like be a performer, and not to say that I couldn't have like moved to LA or done other things or found success through other avenues. But my dream of like being a performer in this particular space was just not going to be a reality. But I recognize now that it was it was a total God thing for me, of setting me up to do this, right? Like I left that job. Someone told me about Upwork or Elance. I got on there and started freelancing, and it just grew and grew and grew. And now I run a multiple 6-figure business, and I can pay for a vacation to Disney World any old time I want. Like,
wow, yeah.
it's actually not that bad, right? But it was really heartbreaking. But now looking back on it, it was just a total God thing and was just not where I was meant to be.
Wow. Jillian, I think this is one of the best ones. I've asked that question, even in the first season, I've asked this question, and I think that was one of the best ones because, like, you studied it. This is what you wanted to do. You had it set. You were doing the whole, struggling artist thing, making $8 an hour and taking off running and doing all of the interviews and callbacks and everything. And then just finally going, okay, enough. This isn't it.
Message received.
Message received. And then it just opened enough space for, because who would have known that signing up for something like Upwork would bring you to this? Because Upwork, like, hey, listen, you're going on there for a few dollars an hour, right? It might be more than 8, but you're still doing an hourly type thing. And now it led to a multiple 6-figure business. That I love that story. Oh my gosh, I love that story.
My first job on Upwork, I got on Upwork and kind of recognized that there were like a lot of international people and was like, okay, how am I going to compete with this? My very first job on Upwork, $3 an hour doing social media for a parking garage in the Seattle Tacoma airport.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah. When you're looking at other rates that are so much lower than the US, yeah, my God, $3 an hour.
Wow. But it led, right? Like it led to this. So it's all right.
It's all right. I love that story. Jillian, after someone watches this episode, listens to it, whichever platform they're interacting with this, what would you tell them? Because again, we can give them a lot of information, but we know that if you don't begin to apply it, does nothing. So what would be the first thing, if we could give them one thing to do after they've watched this episode, what would that be?
For me, I'm like phrasing it in my head before I spit it out. So for me, I think it's easy to have this narrative of the progression of my business because hindsight is always 2020. I can look back and story tell the journey very easily, but when you're in it and you're in the thick of it, and this is your livelihood, and you may or may not eat, or your kids may or may not eat, depending on whether you land this client, like it's some real stuff. Mm-hmm. I totally get that. And that feeling is so much different than listening to someone's narrative or listening to someone's success story. But for me, when I look back at the progression of my business and the steps that I took from literally doing anything I could to make it a couple of dollars to to doing some writing, to then learning about automation and learning about Keep. And then I want to specialize in this, and watching those steps and watching that progression, I recognize that my success truly came from having big goals, but also being realistic about the next goal. I think it's amazing for women entrepreneurs to say, I want to have $1 million business, or even I want to have a 6-figure business, right? Did you know, Tina, that only like 12% of female businesses ever make it to sit like $100,000? And of those, only like 3 to 5% ever hit like the $1 million mark. It's insane. So, yeah. So I think for me, having those big goals of saying, okay, I want to hit 6 figures, or I want to hit multiple 6 figures, or right, whatever, that's wonderful. That's beautiful, like vision board stuff to put next to the picture of the Bentley and whatever else you got going on. But the true work of running a business is being realistic about what is that next step, what is going to inch me closer and closer, because nobody goes from 0 to 100, right? Even the fastest cars in the world don't go from 0 to 100. They ramp up. Some of them ramp up a little bit faster than others, but they all have to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to da, 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 da. So I think if you can be, all of that to say, if you can be just honest with yourself and realistic about what is that next step that's going to inch me a little bit closer today to that end goal. Not like, oh, I want an evergreen webinar. Okay, so what does that look like? That looks like you have to write a script, you have to do some Facebook ads, you have to have an offer, you have to have a sales page, you have to have, some email follow-up, you've got to have da 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 da. That's wonderful, but what's that what's that next thing that can inch you a little bit closer to that goal? And then tomorrow, what's that next thing that can inch you a little bit closer to that next goal? And I think just genuinely being real and realistic with where you are, and setting those realistic, like inching goals for yourself, that to me is so much more valuable than the $1 million business dream or the, I want to, sip martinis on the beach while I make 7 figures. Like, that's wonderful. Good for you. I genuinely, bottom of my heart, hope that happens for you, but it's probably not today or tomorrow. So let's get you closer to that.
Oh my gosh, Jillian. See, like through this whole thing, like you've been just dropping these gems that I love. And I think, and I just said that other answer was probably my favorite, but I think this one might be my favorite now. My gosh, this one is truly my favorite because I never marketed like that about having a 7-figure this, that, or the other. I've always talked about being, having achieved the 7-figure mark, having helped a lot of other people do it, but my marketing never included all of that lifestyle stuff, simply because my lifestyle looked nothing like that. And the true reality of having a 7-figure business is that it all depends on which type of 7-figure business you have, number one, on whether that is truthfully the lifestyle anyway. But my version of a 7-figure business is I wanted my kid to pick which school that they wanted to go to. I wanted, number one, to be able to be fully present for my family, because for so long, I ran and my gosh, wasn't there for the colds, like when my kids grew up, I wasn't as present like you are right now. And if I had a regret, that was it. But I'm fully present when it comes to my grandkids, and I'm fully present to my children now, right? Like, so I love that answer just simply because we all have a different why. And if you can really get, I know a lot of people say if you know your why or whatever, but if you can really get to something tangible in your life, just like you were just saying, and then make those tangible steps. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. Like when you get to that, you will see something different in a short period of time.
Yeah.
But it's only until you get to what you just said. So that was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
And those steps and those goals begin to reveal themselves, right? Like you can't jump from the bottom rung of the ladder all the way to the top of the top rung of the ladder without making those steps. And unless you're truly honest with yourself about like where you are, where you're starting from, and then where you want to go, it's all just going to be a dream in the end. And I think for me, it was recognizing like, I would much rather make whatever X number of dollars and be a fully present mama than have $1 million business and never see my kid. Yeah. Now I I don't work on Fridays. He and I will go to the zoo, or we'll go over to my auntie's house and we'll have our swim lesson, or he and I will go to the beach, or we'll go do something fun. And like, that's like Nate and Mama Day. And that is sacred. That's sacred AF. Like, nobody touches Nate and Mama Day. Clients don't touch that. Like, I don't mess with that. That's our time. And it was so important to me to have that. And I would rather have that than an extra whatever dollar amount in the bank, you know?
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, how many women out there, you know, you were talking about that guilt thing, right? How it's guilt in the business, guilt in a little bit of everything, right? But how many women feel guilty because they can't spend that time? And I love that you've crafted a life and a business that allows you to do that. Because I think, you know, I believe there's always a lesson in life and there's always a time for everything. And I swear that's what this time is about. So we can get our priorities back in order. Mm-hmm. And so for those that are watching who resonate, Jillian, with what you've been talking about, do you have like a, you know, like a free consultation or like a free offer or something that someone would want to get with you?
Yeah. So I always offer free 30-minute consultations. We can review your business or talk about whatever's bothering you in your business. And I can give some pointers and some ideas. If you're a good fit for either our coaching or our agency model, then I might make an offer. If not, you know, then we've both made 2 new friends, and that's perfect and beautiful. Yeah. They can definitely do that. I've got a couple of lead magnets, so to speak, one on like how to create a lead magnet. I would have to go look for another one, but I always do free consults as well. And anybody can just drop me a line, check out our website at informedmarketingsolutions.com. Yeah, we'd love to get to know you.
Awesome. So those links will be down in the description, wherever you're seeing this. Jillian, thank you so much for coming on. I really definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, I was like, wait a minute, that was my favorite answer. No, that was my favorite answer. See, like it, but I really, truly enjoyed it. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tina. This is a blessing. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. See you now. Bye.
Bye.